Hello, good afternoon. I'm Emma and from HowDo. Beautifully introduced. It says on the program that I'm going to talk about the question, how do the Twitter of Instructables? There's a big question mark on there, and we'll use this talk to decide for yourselves whether it could be or not. I'm not sure. Somebody suggested it was actually at the Brighton Maker Faire last year, before we'd launched the app, when somebody said, hey, you need a better catchphrase, because I think I was stumbling around going, so we made this thing that helps people share how they do something. It's kind of really short, and it's kind of quick, and there's photographs and sound, and you can share it on social media, and it's not hard. The Twitter of Instructables, I said. Maybe? Maybe? So I'm going to run through quite quickly. This is what it looks like. I'll give you a demo in the middle. And a quick background, basically, for anybody who's not familiar. I was incredibly interested in how people do things. I have a co-founder of the project called Nils, and we spent a month in India last year looking and finding out how crafts were being sort of created, how general daily life knowledge was being shared, amazing tricks and tips that people knew how to do, which weren't being captured anywhere. We then started looking at how we explained our own projects on the web, and realized we were taking photographs and we were getting around to writing sort of a blog post or making a guide about it, but very rarely actually doing it. And they lost all of the energy that happened. Like, for instance, here, the guy called Adrian, who their team invented a folding bicycle wheel. He's incredibly passionate about it. Anything he does, he's kind of inside and doing this and being like, yes! And that was all getting lost, and we felt something should definitely be done about that. And I think we ended up saying, making a guide, showing somebody how to do something should not be hard. It should be fun. So whether it was my granny teaching me how to make an apple pie, which started with going into the orchard in order to find the right apple tree rather than kind of starting chopping apples, you can't see. It shouldn't be hard to share what you know. In fact, it should be fun. And a lot of that is about lowering the threshold to create something, but it's also about understanding who is watching it at the other end. So we made a platform which was sound and images in tiny, tiny chapters that made micro-guides that could be shared on the web, and you could make it anything. We said it's for everybody, for anything. And we realized that a few people started catching on, but actually it was the makers and the DIYers, the crafters, the people who were already putting a lot of energy into sharing something that really picked it up, which made us very happy because that's the scene that we came from. Now I'm going to guess around with where slides are. So after spending last summer talking to a lot of people and sort of figuring out what was useful, what wasn't useful, we built an iPhone application because it seemed like the intersection between deep kind of core makers. So if you go to a hackerspace, it's very intense. There's a lot of things going on. But if you're not from a creative scene or maker scene, you not actually want to make something from the outset, it's quite hard to go into that space and feel welcome, inspired, that you can actually start. So we started to look at what is the fine line between mainstream people, just interested because making things is fun, and people that really have a core amount of knowledge, and where is that intersection? And we realized a lot of people were searching on the web, but also using apps to search for that. So we launched, and thankfully it didn't kind of fall flat on our face. It wasn't just our parents using it. Some people picked it up in The Guardian and Gizmodo and Gigarom said, oh, actually these kids are doing something interesting. And I think that was because we had a combination of maker backgrounds, creators, engineers, but also kind of this tech space. And so we were based in Stockholm at the time and starting to merge together what works in social media, what works in the way that people use the web, what works in the way that Twitter works, for instance, and how is that being applied to what we do in the maker scene. So if you look at the behavior of how we share stuff, there was forums. I spent a lot of time curating emails that I forwarded to my friends. It took me a long time. I'm sure most people didn't read it, but I enjoyed doing it because I was collecting stuff together that I found interesting and I thought certain people would be interested. So we said, okay, how about if I can make a guide that's incredibly quick while I'm on the go, and I can send it to my friend and say, hey, I knew you wanted to make this. I made this for you. It's really quick. Try it out. And then there was blogs which were curating a lot of this, and then Twitter stood on its own as a space which was fast. It was so constrained. So we realized the constraint was incredibly important. I come from a design background, but social behavior and sort of looking at how and why people do things. So who's heard a child telling a story? Come on, who's heard a child tell a story? Really? This half of the room hasn't? Yeah, okay, you have. So you all know, and this is my cousin, Rory. This was a few years ago, and whenever I'd listen to him tell a story, he'd usually have like a stick or something in his hand, because he's kind of always doing something. He'd say, hey, Emma. I said, yes, Rory, what's going on? I said, you never guess what just happened. They'd listen, he'd go, so this happened, and then this person came and we did this, and then this happened, and then his whole story was broken down into tiny, tiny chunks, basically as much as he could remember and feel like he could get me to listen to before I would stop listening and drift off. And there's actually some really kind of key social behavioral stuff behind that. So 8 seconds is about the time frame that you have until your mind gets a bit disturbed. Welcome. Hello. See, 8 seconds is as long as we've got until we get distracted by something. Little brain saying like, oh, I'm hungry, or like, oh, some colors over there. So we decided to base a format on this tiny, tiny time frame. But it also requires a story structure. So a start, a middle, an end, chapters, a way as of somebody consuming it that I know how far I've got. And that led us to whether we would make videos. We looked at YouTube a lot, we looked at formats that people are already using, and they were very hard to use in terms of creating if I don't know how to make a video. I'm not going to sit down and spend a lot of time. But watching them also was engaging because there was sound, it was moving. And so I'd been doing a bit of research in Stockholm with the Experience Design Group, looking at what actually engages us about experiences. Is it moving? Is it sound? Is it smells? Kind of what are the senses that really pull us in? And to do with the way that people create memories, sound became very interesting. So if we look at this picture on its own, flat, silent, tells us one thing. And if we look at it again and just listen to it and see how differently you perceive what we look at now. So it allows us to be transported a little bit into the place where we are. And I think that's the key part of why making is exciting. So if you're stood with somebody and they're making something and you can hear what's going on, they can walk you through it, you capture some of that passion, some of that energy. So I'm quickly going to make you a HowDo. I don't have a fancy make bigger to go on here, which I should have fixed. So I'm going to stand here, and if you can't see, you have to go closer. So HowDo is an application. We've been upstairs in the studio floor, helping people to understand how do you capture something, what do you know. So I'm just make a key easier to find. Good. This kid came by and made a paper fan because it's like, really hot. Why did you make a fan? Okay, I know how to do that. If I press the do button at the bottom, image screen pops up, camera screen, and then we're going to hit button fan. Yeah, good job. I'm going to do a very quick one because this is my favorite quick live cut. So take a picture of my hand. I've got up to 8 seconds before this stops. Don't mess up, I can do it again. Hold both of your hands out in front of you and see which one looks like an L. If you don't understand, have a look at the picture and just copy it. The hand that looks like an L is your left hand. The hand that doesn't look like an L is your right hand. So there's a tiny bit of something that I just know that I've managed to share. It's obviously very simple, and some people have got much better tricks that they can share. And we found that makers are breaking down really tiny slices, like the first part of just using an Arduino and getting excited about it. This guy came by our office and ran a workshop to make badges, because he has a badge-making machine. He captured it, and then we got this sort of conversation starting to happen within the HowDo. Guess I'm close on time. So we started to see lots of different ways of people using it. This guy started out making a paper LED dimmer, and went on to start using Makey, and then started sort of expanding what he was doing and sharing that in a really easy way. He then got involved in a project where he was starting to put hacker boxes into schools in order to engage kids. And he was using HowDo to give them very simple tutorials that they could understand but also access in their hands, on the go, and that they could capture what they were learning and share that and start documenting it. So he's documented a lot of his journey throughout the whole platform. We then started to see people using it. So in March, we launched on the web. So we launched a website properly, eventually, but also made the objects embeddable. So now you could embed a HowDo that you've made and put it into your blog, or Technology Will Save Us started putting it into their kits. So instead of having just a kit with some written instructions or a video, you can skip through really quick and see if that's for you. Go back, check a chapter or something. And finally, we're based in Berlin. This is actually a Fixit Evening that we did in Stockholm a little while ago. The makerspace in Stockholm invited us over to say, hey, we're doing something, we're trying to raise money. Can you come and make some energy and show people how to fix things and get involved in the makerspace? So it's not just about all being digital, it's very much bookending a physical experience with two digital other way around. Physical bookends for digital sort of experiences. I'm Emma. I think I'm out of time. And I have a treat for you, because as last few months ago we launched the widget, so you can embed stuff. We're about to launch the searching and the tagging. So until now it's just been an increasingly growing database of how people are doing things. And we've been in the back end trying to index and look at voice-to-text tagging and all sorts of different systems of how we could smartly index this to make it really accessible. This is still buggy. Watch out. This is beta. It's TA on the end. I don't know why you can't see the whole screen. Have a play. Tell me what you think. Find the bugs for us. And any questions, I will run around with this microphone. That's it. I'm not going to speak anymore. So you have to clap or ask questions. You can choose. Was there any questions? Otherwise, we can roll on and catch up on time.
I think it is the Twitter of Instructables. It's not a question, but you guys.
Thank you. Confirmed. Twitter of Instructables. All right. I think we're done.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.